Hi folks, hey, Roland Martin here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I get a lot of requests to talk about old experiences I've had on the tournament trail, particularly, and some of the things. Okay, here's one that's really a knockout. Have you ever heard of extrasensory perception? That's ESP. Extrasensory perception. That's the ability to kind of read the future, to kind of predict what's going to happen. It's a premonition kind of thing. Well, we all have premonitions and we all have good feelings when we look at a good spot, like a good pattern spot. And I'm a pattern fisherman, so I look at that exact set of water and cover conditions, like the temperature of the water, the clarity of the water, the type of cover that's there. And I can say, I predict that I can take this jig, for example, in that big old log pile, and that's my prediction, that's my premonition, that there's a fish in there. Well, I think that each and every time. I mean, if I say that enough, it's going to happen. And it looks like I have a premonition. Well, he predicted that. It's because I'm predicting a lot of stuff. But anyway, let me tell you about this story on Lake Sidney Lanier. It's a tournament win that I had years and years ago. I think it was 1980. I think it was 1989. I'm not sure. But anyway, how it went was I went. Orlando Wilson and I were working together in Atlanta, actually out of Woodstock, Georgia, and Orlando and I were co-producing shows together out of Woodstock, and my show Fishing with Roland Martin and his show Fishing with Orlando Wilson was being produced out of Woodstock, Georgia, and I was a partner with Orlando. Anyway, the tournament was coming up, and Orlando was going to fish the tournament. It was the Lake Sidney Lanier, the large lake right by Atlanta. It's one of the really big, heavy fish lakes. It's about 50, 60,000 acres. It's a really big lake, maybe bigger than that. And so Orlando has a brother, Tony, and Tony had been fishing way up the river in a place called Yellow Creek, and way up at Gainesville Marina, way up the lake. And so Tony said, okay, I can tell you about where some fish are. And so Orlando said, I can show you some fish too, and I'll show you the Yellow Creek as well. So anyway, we start off that day, and I'd just come back from Sam Rayburn in Texas, and I'd just been fishing this brand new plug at the time. It's a little N, and it had this red Rayburn Red. They call it now Rayburn Red. At the time, it was just a red plug. And I was using that out there, and I did extremely well. In fact, David Horton, I think he won the tournament that time, and I think he won it on the same lure. Anyway, I did real good in that tournament. So I had one of these on my rod, and Orlando said, Roland, what's that stupid red plug on the rod for? That's not a plug that we can use in the clear waters of Lake Sidney Lanier. It's just not going to work. It just doesn't work. That's for out west, and that's for Sam Rayburn, and it's not going to work here. Well, when somebody tells you that, you kind of are stubborn. You kind of say, well, I want to prove him wrong. And in your mind, you say that. And I kind of said to Orlando, I said, why wouldn't it work? A pattern is a pattern. If the fish are on these little drop-offs and these little shoals, why wouldn't this 8 or 10 foot deep little end work? Oh, it's just not going to work. Just not going to work. So anyway, being the stubborn person I am, we come up to this marker pole, and there's a marker pole in the water, and it just shows this little island, and I throw this little plug out there, and all of a sudden, the biggest spotted bass I've ever seen in my life. We caught it. It had a great big black spot on the side of it, and it weighed 6 pounds, 7 ounces. That's a spotted bass. That's a Kentucky bass or an Alabama spotted bass. And Orlando said, that's the biggest one I've seen in a long time. That's really a monster. I said, well, it's my biggest one I've ever caught. I've caught some other 5 and 6 pound fish, but not 6 pound, 7 ounce spotted bass. I said, let's take it to Gainesville Marina. Let's take it to the marina and weigh it. So we took it up there, and the guy said, oh yeah, I got a good camera. We'll take pictures of it. He took pictures of it. I'll send you a picture. Well, I never did get the picture, but the point is, he had it up on the wall, and I had, I was going to get a replica mount. And Orlando said, well, let's take the fish back out on the lake because the tournament starts in a couple days. And this fish might bite again, on that same plug. And I said, well, what do you think of the red plug now? He said, it's a kind of a fluke deal. So we let the fish go on the same exact spot where we caught it. Well, I also caught another big old bass, about 6 or 7 pounds, a big largemouth on this thing. I said, Orlando, I'm coming up here to Gainesville Marina in a couple days when the tournament starts, and that's what I'm going to fish. He said, well, first let's go to Yellow Creek. So we go to Yellow Creek and show me this water where his brother had been fishing. We're fishing spinnerbaits. That's that Roland Martin big bass spinnerbait. We're also fishing jigs in the logs. There's a lot of dingy water and little buck bushes and logs laying around. There's all kind of dingy water. It's perfect for jigs. Back then, we used a lot of Uncle Josh pork rind. This is actually a pork rind that's a pork rind. It's a real pork rind. It's an animal product. But they don't make it anymore. That was what we used to use on a jig. Now we use crawl worms, or we use creature baits like from Yamamoto. We use all those kind of things, and this is a half-ounce jig, kind of like we still use, and that jig hasn't changed that much in 30 or 40 years. We still use jigs about the same. But the trailer has changed some, and now we use a plastic trailer. These aren't available. We can't find pork rind anymore. Anyway, so we head up that thing, and he shows me some spots to fish, and so now the tournament starts. First day of the tournament. I go up there, boom, right off the bat, I catch this big old bass, about 6 or 7 pounds on the red plug. I go fish that little island where caught that 6-pound, 7-ounce spotted bass. Nothing happens. I don't get a strike. So I said, go up to Yellow Creek. I said, okay, let's take the spinner baits and stuff. And boy, I'm telling you, the spinner bait bites on. Well, I'm a pattern fisherman, like I said. And I looked up on this lawn. This guy had been cutting brush up in his yard. You could see where the tire tracks came down the yard, and just as it hit the water, you could see some brush out in the water, just a little teeny bit. So I took this big bass spinnerbait and I threw it over there. I had 20-pound monofilament, and as I was coming across the top of the water, I saw the whole bush shake. It shook like this, and a big boil came out there, and my kind of plug went sideways, and I pulled, and I didn't get him. I missed him. Big old fish. I said, man, that's a big old bass just rolled up, and it hit my spinnerbait. Well, my partner had just made a cast kind of the same spot. And his thing was, he kind of looking at me, and bam, he catches this bass. It's 9 pounds, 12 ounces. It's the big bass of the tournament, and it also wins a bass boat. It wins, I think it wins a bass boat. Yeah, it wins a bass boat, that big bass did. That's how big it was. So anyway, I'm kind of upset about it because I should have caught that fish. But anyway, I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty high in the tournament the first day, and so the second day comes along, and I'll catch a few more fish, and I take this jig, and I finally go up to Yellow Creek. I said, it's really time to go up to Yellow Creek in those logs. And you're wondering where this story's going, because it's kind of convoluted. It's like, where's this extrasensory perception? Where's this ESP? I go up this Yellow Creek area, and I'm taking this jig for the most part on any log I see, and I flip it in the log. Well, I'd seen this one boat dock, and I came around the corner, and it was a boat dock, and there was an old Christmas tree laying by the boat dock, and I said, huh, that looks like a good spot. I'm not going to fish it right now. I'm just going to save it, but I'm pretty sure that might be good for a big bass. I said, that looks perfect. Water temperature is just the perfect temperature. The clarity is perfect. The pattern's perfect. So anyway, the third day rolls along, and I'm still doing pretty good in the tournament. I drew this minister, he's a pastor, named Terry Chupp, and he would do all the Christian angler meetings at the tournaments. Like he'd conduct the prayer sessions and stuff like that. And he was a big part of our tournament organizations, doing prayer meetings before the tournament starts. Anyway, Terry and I are now partners. He's a real good fisherman, lives in Atlanta. And I said to Terry, well, we're going to go up Yellow Creek probably and try some spinnerbaiting and stuff like that. But before we do that, let me go to that spot where I had that big giant spotted bass. So now Terry says, okay. I said, you caught him on the red plug like that? I said, yeah, I did. I caught this biggest spotted bass I've ever caught in my life on that thing. And so we pulled up this marker pole, and I said to Terry, kind of joking with him, I said, you know, I got ESP. He said, you do, what's that? I said, that's extrasensory perception. I said, I predict that there's going to be a big old bass in there, about 6 or 7 pounds, by that marker pole. Well, see, I'd already fished it. I threw in there, and sure enough, that same exact fish, 6 pounds and 7-ounce spotted bass with a big black spot on the side, it ate this lure. And it's wallowing up out of the water, and Terry said, that's the biggest spotted bass I've ever seen. You can see it was a spotted bass. We get it right up to the net, and it's the same fish. And just as we're netting it, it pulls loose. I said, golly day. Now I remember I'm with a preacher. I said a couple choice words. He said, Roland, you shouldn't say things like that. You know, use Lord's name in vain or whatever I said. He kind of chastised me on that deal. Well, anyway, I said, okay, Terry, I'm sorry. I just lost my cool. Man, that's the biggest bass. That was a 6-pound, 7-ounce bass. I'd caught it with Orlando, and I lost it again. So now, and said, not only that, but I lost the big bass of the tournament. I get up at this spot. My partner had the big bass of the tournament already, so now we're all screwed up. So I said, Terry, I predicted another thing. There's a really big log. I'm going to catch a really big bass in this log right here. And so I'm kind of kidding around with him. And I throw my jig in there. I thought I had a strike, wasn't sure. But anyway, Terry threw back. He catches an 8.25-pound bass. An 8.25-pound, that's a really big bass, a monster bass. Now I'm kind of upset because that was kind of the one I thought maybe bit me. Now I've lost a really big spotted bass. I've lost that 8-pound bass that Terry just caught. I'm like almost leading the tournament, but I'm not catching anything. So finally, I had 3 or 4 more bass. I went to this other big log right across from where my partner had caught the big bass of the tournament, the 9-pound bass. I threw the jig in the big old log, and I hooked a bass. It looked as big as the one my partner caught for the big bass of the tournament. It was another great big 7 or 8 or 9-pound bass. So now I've lost 3 huge, giant bass. And I'm saying there's absolutely no way I can win this tournament, because when you do that, when the wheels fall off your cart to that extent, you know, you're not going to do very well. So anyway, I said to Terry, I said, I don't know what to do. He says, I said, I got a limit, but you know, I just need a big fish. I need at least an 8-pound bass to win this tournament, because Mickey Bruce and some of those guys from Atlanta are doing really good in the tournament. Tom Mann Jr., I think he might have been the one in second place. But anyway, then I came up with this ESPN. I said, Terry, I said, I know I've been talking about ESPN, extrasensory perception, but I predict that I'm going to go around the corner. I got 15 minutes left in this tournament, and I thoroughly predict that I'm going to take this jig with this pork rind, and I'm going to flip it in by a Christmas tree by a boat dock that I've never fished in my life. He said, what? I said, no, I've never fished that spot. I just know it's there. I just know that there's a Christmas tree by a boat dock. And I'm going to catch a big bass. I'm going to win the tournament. He said, oh, yeah, okay. He blows that off. I go around the corner. at the time we didn't have braid. We had 25-pound mono is what I had on this half-ounce jig. I flipped it into the Christmas tree, kadunk. I set the hook with my big flipping stick. I got this big bass on it. He's rolling around the Christmas tree. We reach down to get it. It's 8.5-pound bass. Exactly what I said I was going to catch. It's exactly in the spot I said I was going to catch. It's ESP 100%. And I said, whew, wow, what a lucky deal. Let's go. Let's weigh in. I won the tournament. Well, Terry is going crazy. Terry Chupp, being a minister he is, he says, Roland has this ESP. All day long he's talking about ESP. He's predicting spots that we're catching fish right and left. All the places he predicted that we were going to catch them, we caught them. He said, he's incredible. Well, again, I'm a pattern fisherman, and I was predicting the pattern that might happen, and it did happen. And so he's convinced that I have ESPN. So that's kind of the end of the story. I won that tournament, but now every time I see Terry, and he's still around, he's still fishing tournaments, he comes up to me and puts his arm around his shoulder. He says, Roland, predict me something. I got a big tournament coming up. Give me some ESP. Give me some extrasensory perception. And I'm thinking, I'll say, well, let me let it kick in. Let's see if I got it today. Some days I got it, some days I don't. Let's see if I got it. I don't have it today. I'm sorry, I can't help you. So that's kind of my comeback on the thing. I don't have ESP, but I have a pattern solution to my bass fishing. And that's what it's all about. The prediction is having a good solid pattern. You can predict fish and it'll work. So anyway, that's my story on ESP, and a big win on Lake Sidney Lanier. Hey folks, thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. Hit that likes button. I've had a good time talking to you, and it's fun talking about these old stories. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.